Hi there. Come on in. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, and I wanted to make a documentary about the city. And I was exploring what I could make a documentary about that would let me touch on the vastness and complexity that is this city. I kept coming back to helicopters. It seemed that every major event in Los Angeles, particularly in the 80s and 90s, was covered by a helicopter. And so then the question became, who is the most helicopter reporter of all helicopters, and that is Zoe Tur. So Zoe's life quickly became as interesting to me as Los Angeles. I learned that it wasn't just Zoe who was covering these stories, it was her and her ex-wife, Marika. They were a helicopter reporting duo. Zoe eventually took me to her storage unit, and what I found was a piece of LA treasure. Zoe and Marika had kept all of the tapes that they had shot throughout their entire career. And there's somewhere like 3,000 tapes. We digitized all of them, piecing together Zoe and Marika's story. We were able to bring to life a lot of their memories, a lot of their reflections, and it allowed for exploration of their past as they try to make sense of who they are and who they were. Whirlybird is both a story about Los Angeles and it's a story of a relationship, two people who found each other and went on an amazing adventure.
Greetings and welcome to the Film School. I'm Joe, and kind of flying solo here. That's a bad pun. Just going to talk a little bit about my experience at Sundance 2020 this year in beautiful historic Park City, Utah, where I got to see a documentary called Whirlybird that's currently touring the festival and getting a lot of buzz. It was in competition for the documentaries, which I got to vote on and meet its director and editor, Matt Yoka, who was there in person, so that was pretty cool. First time film for this gentleman, and to have it go to Sundance, that's not too shabby. The director was just kind of grew up in LA, was just kind of looking for a story to tell about his beloved city, and he found a really interesting and insightful way to tell this story. Before I begin, and this is going to be kind of a spoiler-free, simply because the film isn't available for wide release, so a lot of you won't be able to see it for a while, but I just kind of wanted to give my impression of the film. Before I do that, I'd like to thank my nephew Rick Blanchard for comping me tickets to go to Sundance, as well as Acura, who also helped us get into this film and comp us with some nice swag at the Acura tent, which is pretty cool. And I'm also going to give a shout out to Lindsay Marie Media on Instagram, who covered some of the event. And you can check her out at Lindsay Marie Media on Instagram. We'll post that right here if we can. Boom. And you can see some of the cool stories and videos from the day at Sundance, which, by the way, this is the first time I'd been to the Sundance Film Festival since 2012, when Chris and I went and saw Don Coscarelli's adaptation of David Wong's book, John Dies at the End, which was a lot of fun. And that was probably the first time in a few years, too. So even though I'm local, I don't always get a chance to go, so it was really exciting to go up there and check this out. But essentially, this documentary is about Zoe Tur, and then he was known as Bob Tur, Tur, and his wife, Marika Gerard, who at the time were they started off as independent camera operators, who would cover local news events or newsworthy events to, sell to local news stations. And eventually Zoe invested into a helicopter, hence the title Whirlybird, and wound up becoming like the premier helicopter camera service, where they worked for two different networks throughout the 80s and the 90s. They're the ones who were responsible for capturing major LA events and major American events like the O.J. Simpson slow chase or the Rodney King beatings and then the subsequent LA riots of 92. And it's kind of really interesting for me because I never have ever thought about who these camera operators were in these helicopters. I always imagined it was probably several different people from several different news groups, maybe independent and freelance. I had no idea that there was specific ones who would get hired by networks that were, sort of in demand for this thing. And it's very fascinating because, one, you get to see an interesting take of LA, and two, you get an interesting take of journalism. But then the story between Zoe and Marika is very, very interesting itself, the way it unfolds. It's and their children too, whom their daughter is now, I believe she's a correspondent for MSNBC, I believe. And so it's a really interesting story, and I love the fact that Matt, the director, had to dig through, I think, something like 3,000 tapes, as you just saw, but I think it was over 20,000 hours of footage to find this really interesting narrative. And I had a really good experience watching this on the big screen. It was kind of funny though because we were like in the second row, so it was kind of one of those I should have brought my neck pillow things too. But it still really was really enjoyable. But the director actually asked us at the end when he did a Q&A, and I got to walk up and just shake his hand and tell him my thoughts of the film. He asked us how it was. He felt bad for us sitting so close to the theater when I told him that, or to the screen. I mean, when I told him that it really didn't matter because the film was so engrossing that after a while I completely forgot about the pain in my neck. He thanked us for that, and it was really exciting to also hear Mr. Matt Yoka speak about the experience of putting this film together. It took 6 years to come together, and being a first-time filmmaker, to be able to pull something like this off, it was quite rewarding. I even got to take a part in the voting process. Unfortunately, I'm not sure. I have not followed up to find out if it did win the documentary competition. I know Eros Lynn, the director of The Thin Blue Line, another famous documentarian, he had a new film premiere there. So I'm not sure how it did in competition, but I know it's got a lot of good reviews out there. And if you happen to catch it, if it happens to come to a local art house cinema, or if it happens to eventually wind up on something like Netflix or Amazon Prime or any of those, or even just physical media, I do recommend taking a look at it, especially if you're interested in sort of socio-political history as well as real life drama. It's a very, very interesting and insightful film, and I'm going to go ahead and give it 4 out of 4 stars. Highly recommended. A lot of fun on that. But at the same time, got to spend the day up in Park City, which was really cool. Got to see a lot of promotional material for a lot of other films that were being promoted there that are now starting to get released. I know Downhill with Julie Louis-Dreyfus and Will Ferrell was playing there, which ended up opening to limited distribution on Valentine's Day. I can't remember if First Cow was at the competition or if it was at the festival, but seems like a film that would have been. Again, I only got to spend a day there, but what a day. It was a solid 12 hours and a lot of walking around and a lot of visiting the old Park City. I wish this one had been in the Egyptian Theater, the legendary Egyptian Theater, but unfortunately this one was playing at the same theater we saw John Dies at the End. It's sort of a local megaplex, which not a bad thing, not complaining, but the Egyptian Theater, if you ever get a chance to come to Sundance Film Festival and see a film in the Egyptian Theater, that is a very good day. But also like to talk about how we're getting close to our 200 subscriber giveaway. So when we get to our 200 subscribers, we're going to do another raffle and give away an Arrow release Blu-ray this time instead of a Criterion last time. And Chris and I will hand select this film, and you'll like what we pick. I guarantee it. So thanks for watching. If you had happen to have a chance to visit the Sundance Film Festival this last January 2020, go comment. Let me know what you thought. If you saw any cool movies, or if you saw this film, any conversation you'd like to start up about that, I'd be happy to entertain you on that. But other than that, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next review.
Like and subscribe.
No. I mean, yes, please.